Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to answer the questions that I get asked quite frequently, which is number one, why are you guys going through a midwife and not a doctor? And then number two, the question I get is why are you limiting your ultrasounds? And so I am someone who does a ton of research, maybe a little obsessive in my researching, and I'm going to gather all of that. Actually I did, and I have notes so I don't forget anything. So keep watching if this is what you want to learn more about, because I have a feeling you're going to gain a lot of information you didn't know before this video. I actually started to take a midwifery course at one point. And when I say I started, I think I quit on day 2, because when they started talking about forceps, I learned that it was not the class for me and I didn't want to be a midwife anymore. So I wanted to make sure that you guys understand that I did take kind of 2 days of a midwifery course to learn some of the stuff that I've gotten to share with you guys. I'm also a certified newborn care specialist and postpartum doula, so I bring that information to the table. I've had a lot of really wonderful experiences with natural doctors. I had an experience where I was told I may not survive, and the doctors made me sign all these waivers in order for me to even leave the hospital without their care. I signed all that paperwork, went to a homeopathic doctor, which is a natural doctor, and she totally saved my life. So I definitely tend to want to do things naturally as often as possible, because I had such a great experience in that specific incident, if you will. And then, as many of you know who have been watching my channel, we struggled to conceive for 4 years, well, just shy of 4 years, if I'm being totally honest. It was like 3 years and 9 months, but who's counting? And natural IVF, which used close to no medications and very minimal shots, I only had to do trigger shots, is how I conceived. So there again, I have another reason why I really want to do things as naturally as I possibly can. We all know that there are tons of risks anytime you introduce medication to anything, and in the Western medicine world, there are oftentimes there's a tendency to jump to doing things medically instead of saying, hey, why don't we try this natural solution? And I have seen with my own family things that happened to them because they chose to do things medically. The medication commercials, I don't know if you guys have ever really paid attention to these, you probably have. When you watch a commercial that talks about, for example, if you have trouble sleeping, you can take this pill. And at the end, it tells you all the things that pill can cause. And those side effects are worse than not being able to sleep. Like one of them says, may cause cancer, may cause seizures, may cause falling asleep while driving, may cause suicidal thoughts. I'm pretty sure just being sleep deprived might even be better than all of those awful things. So that's another reason why I chose this route. And I am going to give you guys tons of facts. So this isn't just going to be like an opinionated video. It's actually going to be a factual based video, and I'm going to give you guys sources so you can look this up yourself as well. If you haven't seen the documentary The Business of Being Born, it's a game changer. I highly recommend you watch The Business of Being Born. And then I'm going to go over some water birth benefits in this video as well, because I really do hope to give birth in a jacuzzi tub, and there's reasons why I want to do that, and in many cases hospitals don't offer that to you, or if they do, it's under certain restrictions that I don't want to be restricted by. So before we get into all of that, let's go straight to one of the first questions that I get, which is, what about when the baby is born? What happens when the baby is born and you're not in a hospital? So let's jump right into that. All right guys, after your baby is born, you actually have the option to give birth at a birthing center with a midwife, or you have the option of giving birth at home. So cool. So if you choose to give birth at home, you're already home. That's pretty cool. If you choose to give birth at a birthing center, you go home a few hours after your baby is born. And they're gonna do all the same tests at the birthing center as they would do in the hospital, except for the hearing test. So after you give birth, you're gonna do skin to skin, and then they're gonna do delayed cord clamping. If you're not familiar with delayed cord clamping, say that 5 times fast, do a little bit of research on that. Highly recommend delayed cord clamping. They do something called eyes and thighs at the hospital, and it's also offered with your midwife. I feel like my camera's falling slowly, and eventually it's just gonna be of my boobs. Okay. The eyes and thighs is offered to you if you have chlamydia or gonorrhea. At a hospital, all babies get it. It doesn't matter if you have chlamydia or gonorrhea or you don't, they just give it to all babies. But a midwife actually only gives it to you if you've tested positive for either of those STDs. And then that's for the eyes. So they put medication in the eyes for that. Chlamydia or gonorrhea are the only two STDs that are affected by that. And then the thighs is actually a vitamin K shot in case your baby has a rare disease, which is a vitamin K deficiency. Midwives offer this as an option to you. Doctors, it's mandated. Your midwife will measure the weight of your baby and the height. They'll use the APGAR visual assessment at the 1 and 5 minute mark, just like they do at your hospital. They'll listen to the heart and the lungs. They'll check for disorders, and they'll make sure your baby is perfect before you get sent home. And then at the 24 to 36 hours later mark, they actually come to your home, the midwife does, and then they do the discharge procedures, which they do at the hospital, except at the hospital they keep you for 2 to 3 days, depending on if you give birth vaginally or through C-section. And then when they come to your home, they're gonna do the HEAL blood test, which is a newborn blood screening test if you want them to. And then they do a CCHD test, the midwives do at your home, and that stands for Critical Cardiac Heart Defect Test. The one test again that they don't do is the hearing test, but you can do that at your pediatrician's. The midwife will also check that you're breastfeeding comfortably if that's what you chose to do, and that the baby's behavior is normal. They'll discuss your baby's needs, how much should your baby be eating and pooping and peeing. They'll check mom's uterus, make sure her bleeding is okay. Really both mom and baby are examined except for it's in your home, and you never have to get into a car, you never have to leave your home, and you don't have to drive to a hospital which is surrounded by sick people. Need I say more? Okay, I know some of you are like, yeah, that's fine and dandy, but let's really talk about this whole issue you have with ultrasounds, Michelle, and let's talk about the actual act of labor. Like, yeah, we get all the perks about when the baby's here, but let's talk about the real deal. You're in labor and you're not at a doctor's. So let's do that. We're gonna talk about ultrasounds. I got my handy dandy notes here. And we're gonna talk about the midwife topic a little further here. So all of the tests that that they do to you when you go to the doctors are actually available to you when you go through a midwife. Notice the difference in verbiage. It's not that they're being kind of pushed on you or pressured onto you, or told to you without really understanding why or being given a choice. You have the option of doing those tests, and they'll never do anything without your permission when you go to a midwife. They inform you on the pros and cons of every test, scan, and all the alternatives. Here's an example. I'm actually allergic to sugar. Crazy, but it's true. And I still eat it sometimes, FYI, like fruits. I can't avoid fruits altogether. But I told my midwife there's no way I want to do that glucose test. I said I don't want to drink that crap, which is what it is. And I also don't want to deal with the sugar rash. And she said, that's fine. There's other ways that we can test your sugar. And she gave me alternatives that we could do. So I love that there are alternatives. And then the prenatal care in the birthing center is neat because I can text her anytime, I can email her, I can call her. And when you go to a birthing center, it feels like you're at home. There's a comfortable living room, there's a couch, there's a kitchen. Like, it's so comforting. When I go to a hospital, I just see like needles and tubes, and it smells weird, and it's freezing cold, and I just feel like I'm surrounded by like sick people, and it's not my thing. It's just not my thing. And if it's your thing, that's totally cool. This is not to talk anybody out of doing things one way or another. This is really just my perspective on this. When you go to a midwife, you avoid multiple ultrasounds because there's no long-term studies, you guys, on the dangers of ultrasounds, but we do know enough to know that there are some issues. So I'll tell you guys about that right now. We know that ultrasounds are capable of deforming cell membranes. We also know that they vibrate the fetus. We know that they're loud enough to affect your infant's hearing, and they're capable of deforming brain cell membranes, which can lead to autism. Another thing that we know, Yale researchers actually found a significant number of neurons that failed to acquire their proper position in the brains of these fetuses, and ultrasounds can make tissues so hot that they actually cause damage, and something called cavitation, which is small bubbles, start to develop into the tissues. And by the way, if you guys want to look these facts up, all of this ultrasound information was found in Pathways to Family Wellness magazine. It's issue number 48, or if you want, you can just go online to their website, which is pathwaystofamilywellness.org. The midwife actually discusses what we will do with the information from these tests. So for example, there was a list of tests that were being offered to me, and I said, what do you think I should do? And she said, well, let me just tell you, if they find some concerning results with these tests, then what they're going to want to do is more invasive testing. And I said, well, what's the worst thing that can happen with the invasive testing? And she said, you do have the risk of miscarriage. And I said, no. So there you go. There's no reason for us to do that. And I also love that I'm being treated uniquely as a person. You know, when I've gone to the doctor in the past, and let me just add, I really love my Kaiser doctor. I really do love her. I just recently met her and she's wonderful. But they just have this is what we do. If you're this age, this is how it goes. These are the tests we run. These are the vaccinations we recommend. These are the shots you should do. It's kind of like you're just looped into, you know, a standard practice that they have. But a midwife discusses with you how you want to do things. I mean, look, you guys, my midwife always asks me for permission before she touches me. She'll say, do I have permission to put my hands on your belly? Is it okay if I say hi to your baby? It's just a completely different experience. But let's talk about labor, because some of you guys are like, yeah, okay, I agree with a lot of the stuff you're saying, but we haven't talked about labor yet. So I have my computer up in front of me because I wrote down quite a few notes here that I want to go over with you guys that, again, are not to make you change your mind, although you might after you hear some of these. It's really just to educate everyone on what we choose, or what we're choosing because we feel it's the best option. So we want to educate everyone on what we're doing and why, because we keep getting asked. So here we go. There were about 15,574 women who planned to give birth in birth centers. If they had chosen instead to give birth in a hospital, it's estimated that they would have experienced 3,000 additional and unnecessary C-sections. So instead, these C-sections were safely and effectively prevented, along with a potential cost savings of at least $4.5 million, you guys. Why does this matter? What does this even mean? Well, the US C-section rate has increased substantially over the past few decades. It went from 21% in 1996 to 32% of all births now, and I've heard it's even higher by my friends who are doulas in birthing hospitals. And so, God, that's crazy. So that's over half of the increases among first-time moms, and most of these C-sections are done for subjective reasons, such as you just took too long in labor, like slow progress. Meanwhile, the C-section rate has been stable in birth centers with midwives for over 20 years. It's stable. That's gotta say something. That really does have to ring a bell for some people. And then you're less likely, you're not going to be induced with a midwife. It's very unlikely. They're not going to give you Pitocin or oxytocin. There's no electronic fetal monitoring, except they'll use a Doppler ultrasound. They always make sure you and your baby are safe during your labor. There's very few episiotomies. They have all these natural ways of working through the pain, one of which is a labor in water option, which I'll talk to you guys about in a second. The birthing center that we're going to is nationally accredited, which means they have to abide by all of these standards, health standards, cleanliness standards. They have to have all the right information, the right tools. It has to be all up to date. It's a really safe way to go and a very sterile way to go. More than 9 out of 10 women, which is 94%, who entered labor planning a birth center birth achieved a vaginal birth. In other words, the C-section rate for low-risk women who chose to give birth at a birth center was only 6%, compared to the C-section rate of 27% for low-risk women in the US. This means that the C-section rate for women in birth centers is more than 4 times lower than what's seen among low-risk women in the US. And researchers estimate that more than $30 million has been saved by women who chose to go to birth centers. Some of the benefits of having your baby in water. Warm water is soothing, it's comforting, it's relaxing. In your later stages of labor, the water actually has been shown to increase your energy for the woman. The effect of buoyancy lessens the mother's body weight, so it allows free movement and new positioning. It also promotes more efficient uterine contractions and improved blood circulation, resulting in better oxygenation of the uterine muscles, less pain for the mother. Hello, sign me up for that. And then more oxygen for the baby, which many of you who have already had a baby before know that that is something that is a concern. They're always watching that. And then immersion in water often helps lower high blood pressure caused by anxiety. The water seems to reduce stress-related hormones, which allows the mother's body to produce endorphins, which serve as pain inhibitors. See, there's a theme here. We want to get rid of that pain as much as we can. Water causes the perineum to be more elastic and relaxed, and that reduces the likelihood of tearing. And so you're not going to need stitches as likely. And women, like, come on, we don't want stitches down there. If we can avoid that. And then as the laboring woman relaxes physically, she's actually able to relax mentally. And then she can focus on the process of actually giving birth. And then since the water provides a great sense of privacy, some women don't feel all the same inhibitions or anxieties or fears. And the benefits for your little baby is it provides an environment similar to the amniotic sac. So it eases the stress of birth, and then they get this great feeling of security, this sense of security. So ultimately, let's just sum this up. Why should you hire a midwife? If you're considering it, why are we hiring a midwife? Midwives are experts in normal childbirth. Hospitals treat the sick. We are not going to a midwife for any other reason than we truly believe this is the best option for us. Midwives believe in the woman's ability to give birth naturally, and statistically, the safest place for a low-risk woman to give birth is at home or in a birth center with a trained midwife. Midwives specialize in natural births, home births, water births. And when you're working with a trained midwife, you can eat and drink during your labor. You can move around and feel free. You'll have great care throughout your pregnancy, your labor, your delivery, and your postpartum experience. You're more likely to be treated individually rather than kind of sacrificed to protocols or statistical averages. You're less likely to need pain meds, and there'll be less risk of C-section. That's reduced. And you won't be subjected to routine procedures such as continuous electronic monitoring or routine use of IV fluids. So you will see a decrease in postpartum depression. That's why we're going that route, guys. Hopefully this clears it up for you. Again, if you're choosing to go a different route, we totally wish you the best. This is not to convince you that your way is wrong. It's just to sort of, explain what our way is and why we chose to do that. Hopefully this was helpful to you. If there's anybody that you think could benefit from watching this, please feel free to share it with them. Tag them in it or send them the link. I think it's helpful just to have information, because when you're making a decision, you want it to be an informed one. And if you have not already subscribed to my channel, please do. I love hearing from you guys, and I love when you guys keep in touch with our journey. Take care, guys. Bye.